Good afternoon, everybody. You are in the right place, those of you that can tell the time and have set this in your calendar to come in on time. I'm just saying hello, you are in the right place. We will start officially in a moment, but I'll just wait for you all to take your seats in this virtual environment. I will be back in a few moments. Okay, that is good. I see you are coming in at the speedy rate, so that is wonderful. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Festival Fridays. And we have a great lineup today. In fact, we've got two Festival Fridays because it's Christmas. We have one a bit later for the US markets, which is amazing. But to start our day, we've got something really interesting. And I know many of you as brands have spoken to us this year and told us where your media knowledge gaps are. We've taken that on board. And one of the key projects and one of the key topics that you all asked for was more information on how do you actually properly connect with millennials and Gen Z. Huge question. Lots of people say they do it. Unfortunately, more people get it wrong and don't quite do it right. So we thought the best way to solve that was to bring in two experts who will sit here, provide you with some amazing insight, some amazing advice, and some great tips on how you can utilize Snap as a platform to connect with those millennials and with that Gen Z. And I am delighted to say that our partners for today, Snap, they have put forward one of their best speakers so far, which is amazing. She happens to be the Global Partnerships Lead for Western Europe. It is no other than Yabs Macaulay, the lady with the #1 bits emoji, which is absolutely fantastic. If you don't know what that is, absolutely essential you stay on the line and listen to this entire session. And to accompany her and being beautifully interviewed by her is Alvaro Morales, who is the head of digital and innovation for Carat Spain. So we've got a real European and global feel to this session. So I will disappear. If you have some questions, and they are very sensible and non-offensive, I may well ask the panelists at the end what they are. But sit back, enjoy, make sure you're taking plenty of notes, and please welcome Yabs and Alvaro.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's one of the best intros I've ever had, I think.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
Okay, so yeah, Jeremy, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. As you mentioned, we're really excited to have Alvaro on board with us today. We'll talk about, a little bit about his experience just in general, and then kind of move on to, some of the things that he's worked across in terms of, the Snap platform. So, Alvaro, do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself and your kind of experience?
Yeah, why not? Hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. In your case, here in Spain, it's still, oh no, it's already 1, yeah. Yeah, I'm Alvaro, as they say. I'm the head of digital innovation in Carat Madrid. I've been on for 14 years within the digital industry, and always trying to improve the digital ecosystem for our clients, trying to improve the digital excellence when it comes to campaigns, because there are a lot of activities in digital going on, and it's necessary to have a little bit of a connection between all of them. And I will always try for clients to have a good experience and develop a good ecosystem within the industry after them.
Absolutely. And I mean, 15 years in digital years, that's almost like a lifetime. So
yeah, I remember I started with the Messenger in Hotmail, or even before.
There you go.
And things have changed, YouTube came up, and social networks. So there are so many things have changed that I would say that I have never stopped learning. So to explain the trajectory is difficult, because I've been changing pretty much every 2 years. So pretty much doing the same within the digital ecosystem, but different challenges, different clients, different sectors. So evolving a little bit with the market and trying for the clients to succeed within the digital ecosystem. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess sort of talking about evolution. So, Gen Z and millennials right now, I think, are probably different to any other age group that, has ever come before. So how would you say that, over the years, you've seen brands sort of changing their approach in terms of how they deal with their younger audiences?
Yeah, there's been a huge change in a way that we try to understand how the digital native generations behave. And from the brand's point of view, I would say that pretty much they try to change the way they approach to them from 2 points of view. On the first hand will be the platforms that they use and the formats. That definitely they have understood with the time that you cannot speak in the same way to someone who has been dealing with the digital media since they were very, very young. And on the other hand, it's not only about the message and the platform, but also it's about the message itself. So I think clients, they already know that the way they approach to this kind of generation has to be different in the content and the message they translate to them. So this is the situation, this is the reality, and I think they are aware. Afterwards, it depends on the kind of client, depending if they are brave enough or they have the enough resources to create, not only adapt what they master to say or regular spot that they can to use for a broad target. In not all cases, they eventually get to adapt the format and the message, but I think that all of them are aware that we are talking to a different audience and that we have to do things differently. Not you get to do that eventually, but they know that they have to change things in order to resonate within this audience that are definitely more challenging than other generations, and they have what we call the digital or advertising blindness, in a way that you have to be very relevant in order to tap into their culture or in their interests.
And I mean, just talking about this year specifically, because, you know, with COVID, it's been a very sort of challenging year, I think, for brands to be able to connect with their audience, regardless of their age. So what would you say that you've seen, I guess, that's been different, or the ways that brands have had to adapt and kind of diversify in terms of how they're speaking to Gen Z and millennials specifically during this time of COVID, you know, lots of political unrest? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I think brands are trying to move from storytelling to story doing. I guess they have realized that it's not only about saying what you are or what you want to be, but you also have to demonstrate what you think you are or what you think you can be. So I've seen brands coming to the States, being more brave and trying to get closer to their reality, in that case in Spain because of the COVID and all year round basically. And they've been thinking more about the client needs around COVID and around the situation, more around your product. And then you try to build up in these audiences in general, coming from this insight that the reality and our daily life has changed so much, and the needs of the people farther from what the solution of your product is to your reality, but they are trying to give a message as a brand to the society. So they are trying to be more inclusive, they are trying to be more sustainable. So they are trying to be closer to audiences' needs, to say. Afterwards, once you get their trust, then you come over with your product that it will be in a second stage, to say. So maybe they have given a step back to say, look, this was my product. This is, I'm still what you think I am, but also I do all the kind of things that are good for the planet or are good for society. And this is the way they are trying to gain the trust of consumers. Then some brands are more entitled to say that than others. But after COVID, I think that most companies have realized that it's very important to have this vision and mission and to communicate it, and not also to communicate, but also this story doing that I was saying, that is important to let people know that you are doing things in the real way.
I really like actually how you describe that storytelling versus story doing, because I think, you know, Gen Z and millennials are very much that generation where they're all about
Exactly.
action, right? They want to see things and they're doing things. They're being very vocal in, you know, how they communicate what they like and what they don't like. And I think they expect the same things from the brands that they buy from. And I think it does give brands more of a, I guess, a responsibility, right? To think
Exactly.
about how they approach some of these global issues, and they don't have the freedom to just kind of ignore them anymore and just say, hey, here's my product, go buy my product, and ignore kind of what's going on, you know, a global level. And so when you think about, you know, all of these kind of various different things, whether it's kind of, you know, social issues or just the fact that you're dealing with a very different generation, what kind of resources are you relying on, I guess, in terms of data to inform some of the decisions and the strategies that you kind of put into play and implement?
I mean, we still run internally within the agency several studies that we have like a big panel that we renovate every single year in order to extract information about how people behaviors are changing in terms of media and also in terms of thinking and motivations. There will be our first source of information to say. Then we have the studies and research that we do together with some of our partners. Spotify has been doing some research on these kind of generations. We have partnered with some other panels and publishers to run some studies about how these generations are changing. And then also we rely on third-party data that we obtain from some publishers and that allows us to know what kind of content is this generation consuming, what type of devices are they using, when are the peak time that they are connecting with our content. So third-party data that are available in the market, in some cases you have to pay for, and in some cases you have to get a partnership with them in order to use this data for you. But data in order to know how consumers are, and data as well for activation. So there will be different kinds of data to know, because we also run lots of try to use the social networks to listen what people are saying. So there are these kind of studies that we try to listen what users are saying or interacting with, and social networks are definitely a place where this kind of generation express themselves, and it's important for us to know how they are behaving and what are the topics and the territories that they tap into, right?
Yeah, and it's, again, you know, when you talk about, you know, self-expression, and, you know, this audience in particular being very well kind of versed and used to going onto their social platforms and expressing how they feel. I think, you know, that for me is kind of one of the main kind of, you know, USPs about Snap, is that, you know, we've created what is essentially a network of, you know, real friends. And so what that means is that people are kind of, you know, free to be, you know, their most authentic selves. You know, we don't focus on comments or likes or anything like that. It's about, you know, how you communicate, much like, you know, you and I having a conversation now. You know, how do you communicate with your friends in real life, and how do you almost sort of replicate that within a social platform that feels authentic? So I guess from that perspective, it'd be interesting to hear from you, you know, which brands you think are doing it well, in terms of, you know, the way that they're using social platforms, in particular Snap, and maybe which brands you think could, you know, are finding it a little bit more challenging, and why, or maybe not necessarily the brands, but potentially the verticals.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to say in the good practices come from entertainment, sports, you know, Nike, Adidas, Disney, even within the fast-moving consumer goods. Red Bull is one big and great example that is doing great in all social networks, and definitely maybe fast-moving consumer goods in general terms are the ones who are having more limitations sometimes in order to approach this kind of platform, because they have like more traditional TV mindset, where they have like kind of long audio or video pieces and masters that they try to translate to the digital world, and it becomes difficult for them to understand that we really need in this kind of platforms different code, different format, different way of speaking. So we have had good examples here in Carat with Coca-Cola. Fanta has launched different campaigns in this kind of platforms where users, they have been able to participate in different flavors that the manufacturer was launching in the market. So they were like these battles between flavors. We had some good experiences as well with Oreo and Chips Ahoy, who are brands that are very playful brands that they find like a similar way of expressing themselves in this kind of platform. Also say that there are different positioning between different platforms, and definitely Snap will be the real me. So where maybe you share, as you said before, like you're a small group of friends, but you are more confident in that platform. So overall, because your family is not around, that doesn't happen in the platforms, and because you don't have to give like an ideal image of what you would like to be or what you are not, but you want to show, right? So those are environments where brands should feel more free to spread themselves as well, but they are not used to do that. So the problem is that they see, as I said before, that they have to do things differently from the formats and copy point of view. But when it comes to the brand, okay, you have the possibility of the liberty to express yourself and be different, to work like you were in the backstage. Is the case of Snap, when eventually Instagram copied the stories and stuff. You know, brands at the beginning, they are not able to express themselves as they would like to, because they have been so many years doing things in a restrictive way that it's difficult for them sometimes to behave in the way that consumers are behaving in this platform. And there is nothing better than behave as a brand as users are behaving in this platform. In the case of Snap, it's very clear. I mean, they started to play with lens, filters, and snap codes and stuff. So brands, they must go this with this behave and these codes and this coding of speaking, expressing, and using filters and stuff. So definitely that's a big challenge. There are big winners, but there are big challengers yet to get into the platforms and do well.
And how would you say that, you know, tone of voice potentially differs from other platforms to Snap? Because as you kind of mentioned, you know, brands actually, I think, have a lot more freedom to play around with, you know, that tone of voice. And I really like how you described about almost like being backstage, right? That, yeah. You know, when you compare potentially to other mediums like, you know, traditional media, i.e. TV, it's a very kind of formulaic approach, yeah. I think, right? That, and you know, you're seeing some brands being a little bit more innovative now in the kind of creatives that they're pushing out, like some of the brands you've mentioned, you know, Nike, Adidas. But actually, I think the great thing about Snap is that not only via the various different formats are you able to kind of deliver a tone of voice, but you can really kind of go on a bit of a journey of experimenting, right? And so how would you say, you know, maybe, you know, Snap would, in terms of when you're looking at a media plan and pulling together a strategy, what role would you say that, you know, Snap fulfills in terms of, you know, other media platforms by comparison?
Yes, I would say that maybe Snap is the brand that allows you to gain this trust that we were talking about before. It's easy to demonstrate in this platform the walking that we were saying before. It's not just about saying what I do with a beautiful picture in the best shooting and stuff, but Snap allows you to show the brand from the inside and be more let's say more authentic and real and closer to the consumer. So you tap in their needs, in their motivations, and I think that is a great platform to discover the new side of a brand that you thought that it has, or it had been traditional in a way of communicating and the products, and suddenly it's a brand that is brave, that is closer to you, that is fresh, that is speaking your own language and your own code. So I think that is a new ocean that brands, or overall traditional brands, challenging for them, but at the same time is very, very positive in a way that there is an ocean, a place where they can be themselves in a different way that they are being before. And overall, because they are talking, as we were saying at the beginning, to a different audience that need to be spoken to in a different way. So I think this is a great platform in terms of variety of formats, allows you to express yourself differently, and overall also can be linked to commerce. I mean, it's not only discovery, because it can go all the way through the funnel. And now with the solutions that you have with the virtual reality and linking to commerce, it's not only about brands in the top of the funnel, but you can also go different formats using the data and in a funnel strategy, going from top to bottom along with the time.
And I think, again, you know, you make a good point, because one of the main kind of, you know, questions that I've faced over the past sort of year and a half of being at Snap is, okay, yes, great, you can do all of these incredibly, you know, innovative and creative things in the way of, you know, augmented reality and lenses, but how does that, you know, translate to, you know, very specific KPIs? And I think there's a common misconception that we're unable to do that, and we are actually able to link, you know, those very specific, you know, objectives, performance objectives, to, you know, that creative angle, and not lose anything in between. And so I think it's for me, like, you know, you've mentioned a couple of the brands that you've worked with so far have done, you know, really good executions. And so what would you kind of, if to some of the brands who are on the line now and who are watching now, if they're kind of trying to think about, okay, well, where do I start with Snap? You know, how do I start to kind of figure out, you know, what my strategy is? I know that I need to speak to Gen Z millennials. I know that they're on this platform. Where do I start? Because you've got a lot of experience with lots of different brands and working with us.
Yeah. Well, I will start by trying to understand them, analyzing with you together. I mean, there is no better way than working together with a Snap and having a look at some of the best case studies you have, and trying to get inspiration in terms of the activation when it comes to formats and copies and messages. And then try to, if it's the first time, I will invite them to try different formats to see how people respond to you, because there is no science philosophy behind any format that maybe for one brand behaves different than from another. So I will try to design a broader strategy that allows you to try different formats and to have a look at the results, because sometimes you can, we plan a lot of things based on hypotheses, and sometimes you get surprised by things or audiences that interact with you that you were not expecting for them to do that. So I will look at different lines of segmentations to see how react to different to your communication. I will try different formats to see how people react to your brand in that way. And I will try to be brave as well in terms of format and messages, and even, why not, some promotions there, giving away some, you know, trying to be challenging with making them participate with your brand, inviting them to do, you know, genuine and friendly things that they can play with, and analyze the results and try to improve campaign by campaign, because happens in every social network in general. We, as I said before, we have like misconception from the past and from all the media, where we think that things are going to work in a given way, but we can get surprises from some segments of the overall in young audiences, that they will react differently as we thought in terms of engagement. Mm-hmm. Overall, measure as well more farther from media indicators. So, because sometimes it's not about comparing with other platforms, not only about reach by the sake of getting reach. It's important to get this meaningful reach that is going to be in the studies that we do about brand indicators, not only media indicators, but also see how those impacts have been relevant in my audience. So I'm able to elevate my, you know, the preference for my brands, the awareness and stuff, because, you know, getting reach, buying a lower cost is quite easy today, combining different platforms. But for me, the challenge and for the brands should be in getting this meaningful reach that makes people think about your product when it comes to the shelf or on the shortlist or when they buy an e-commerce. So this walk the talk that we said before can make, through this kind of platforms like Snap, put a brand that was in the, I don't know, in your second thoughts, to say, bring it to the shortlist.
Forefront, absolutely. And I guess, you know, one of the things that sort of working for Snap, we always love to talk about our creative tools. So, you know, augmented reality in terms of, you know, the lenses, you know, the ability to be really creative in terms of the filters. How easy would you say? Because I think, you know, for some people, for some brands, they might start to worry, okay, well, how complex is this for us to put together? You know, we're used to running, you know, very sort of, you know, standardized video formats. So this is maybe too much for us to consider, you know, if we're talking about augmented reality. So from your experience, how kind of easy would you say it is to kind of build those more immersive and innovative experiences on Snap?
The experience has been has improved with the time, because at the beginning, as you say, we all thought, oh my God, now we have to get into a process of 4 weeks to develop a lens. We have to get assets from client, then we have to create it, they have to approve it, and then like a long way going back and forth. But lately we are importing and reusing lens that some international brands are using in other countries, and they are like very neutral lens or filters that we can use or reuse from other countries. So it's becoming easier in a way that with international brands like Oreo, Chips Ahoy, Coca-Cola, as I said before, even Pringles, we are using lens and material that have been used in this platform in other countries. So it's becoming easier. I mean, from the video point of view, it's more difficult because maybe sometimes the messages and the codes that people use in the ads is different. But once brands overcome the video development process, to say that is the basic to using these kind of platforms, when it comes to engagement and being more playful with the audience in terms of using lens filters and stuff, it's very useful to have a look at your partners in other countries and try to get inspiration, and why not to reuse things that are being done somewhere else. I mean, there's nothing bad on doing that. As I said before, I think that is a source of inspiration, but at the same time, you can save some money and some time by reusing some filters that have been done, or even some filters that Snap may have their own filters that they can adapt to your brand. You are going to make the process shorter. You're going to be launching to the market faster and even cheaper. So I think that there are creative sources that you put into the agencies and in the advertising hands that if you are savvy, you can use and have a good result.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Alvaro, because I think, you know, probably when we first launched augmented reality, it might have been a little bit more challenging, I think, to deliver those assets, you know, the cost of those assets, the time. But now, you know, as a business, we've got very good at ensuring that when we're having conversations in one market, you know, that we try and loop in, you know, lots of the other countries globally so that they can easily activate. Because, you know, if you've got, we have, gosh, on a weekly basis, you know, like tens of lenses that are coming out of the US, for example. And when you've got global brands like, you know, Coca-Cola, it makes just so much sense just to tap into something that's already been created. And, you know, all you need to do is to, you know, localize the lens with the language. So for you, it would be into Spanish, but, you know, we're able to do that across the globe. So it's a very kind of easy way to activate. And I think, you know, in that misconception of, oh my goodness, how do I create these, you know, AR lenses? Where do I start? I think, you know, that's no longer a bigger concern. And then the second point that you make around, you know, just the lenses that we create internally. So whether it's around, you know, key events like, you know, Easter, Christmas, you know, the summer holidays, there are always lenses, I think, that can be adapted and modified for brands' use. So yeah, it's definitely, for me, I think, you know, one of the areas that there's still kind of a few misconceptions around in terms, you know, the ease of actually creating these lenses. So it's good to hear that, you know, that you're already sort of tapping into those kind of international resources and relying on the budgets of some of the other teams to make it happen.
Yes, it's a great source of, as I told you before, inspiration and material that you can reuse, and it's easy to leverage on some of the lens that you may have developed for some key moments, as you said before. That I think that is the best way for a brand to start doing things on the Snap, and then afterwards, if you want to create something from scratch, because it's you discover that is the platform that allows you to get closer to your audience and to engage with them, bring it along, and then start doing things in a more complex way, like augmented reality or snap codes, putting in your packaging, and then going further and getting to the e-commerce as well. So there is a long way to go, a big funnel, a long funnel. And the sooner you start, the better.
Yeah, and actually you make another good point, because even though, you know, we have all the resources of lenses that are being created internally and potentially by, you know, brand teams in other markets, the actual kind of tools that exist, you know, on Snap or, you know, our kind of web portals. So, you know, like Lens Web Builder, for example, that allows, you know, brands to actually take that creativity into their own hands. And I think that can almost be, you know, the second step. You know, once you've, you know, tried a lens, you know, you've got some data, you've got some evidence, you kind of know what works, you know, for your brand and for the audience, then you can sort of go away and go crazy, right? And
exactly.
create whatever you want. And, you know, we're very much about, you know, allowing advertisers and, you know, agencies to kind of build on their own creativity. Like we give you the tools to go off and kind of be as creative as possible. And I think that's one of the things, again, that, you know, as brands start to feel more comfortable with Snap, that hopefully, you know, you see more of that use kind of coming about.
Yeah, that's the way to go, definitely.
And so thinking about, you know, next year, 2021, when, you know, hopefully COVID is a distant memory, you know, brands are kind of, you know, back thinking in the normal ways about, you know, their strategies without having to worry about, you know, global pandemics. What would you say would be, you know, your kind of like hope, I guess, in terms of, you know, some of the brands that maybe you haven't worked with yet, about how, you know, you'd like them to think about sort of approaching 2021 on Snap? Like, what are the things that you're most excited about?
Yeah, to say that, linking with what I said at the beginning, I think that the brands have realized that they have to be more unique, or at least to demonstrate that they are as unique as they were thinking they were, and to look for platforms like Snapchat that are very innovative, even though afterward they've been copied from some others, but to get to see in Snap a partner that you can grow with, and if the audience keeps steady and growing in an organic way, you are going to find a platform that is very unique, friendly for the users, away from whatever they don't want to listen from. So it's like very clean, to say, where brands can behave in a different way. And I think that brands, this is what they have to really continue thinking, and that the pandemic is like a restarting point for them to say, look, here where I say, but this is what I am, and look for platform, Snap among others, where they really show what they really are, what there are behind the product they are selling, because that's the way to get the trust of consumers, and afterward we can build on that. So my advice will be to look for this kind of platform that are friendly environments for them, where this kind of generation, what we were talking about before, they feel confident, and where they are looking for their friends and for brands to behave in the same way that the friends are behaving, and trying to adapt this new profile that get you closer to them and break barriers, start developing assets from scratch. If you afterwards you try the ones that are available for you, but do things different from what they were doing in other more traditional media, and develop their own language code and visual code for these kind of platforms. That will be the way to go in the next year.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, from an internal perspective, we're so excited about, you know, 2021 in terms of, you know, the new integrations, you know, developments in terms of how, you know, we're giving, I guess, users or Snapchatters more of a kind of an immersive experience. And I think it's all about, for us, it's just about driving that engagement and making sure that we keep Snapchatters engaged, because if they're engaged on the platform, they're engaged for, you know, you guys as agencies and brands to actually kind of communicate with them. So I think, yeah, that kind of all kind of makes complete sense. Is there anything, you know, as we're kind of starting to like sort of wrap up now, is there anything else that you think that you know, would like to kind of share with, you know, the people who are kind of tuned in today and listening in, and maybe not even specifically about Snap, maybe just about, you know, sort of how they're speaking to Gen Z and millennials in sort of right now and going into 2021?
Yes, maybe as a way to close, regarding to Snap, I would say that considering the wide variety of platforms that right now advertisers can face, I would say to look at Snap as a place that, despite maybe it hasn't got the largest audience, at least here in Spain, they have like a rich audience in terms of opinion leaders, to say, you know, people, instigators that are going to be the leaders in their group. So maybe looking at Snap as an environment and a platform where they can connect with those people who are leaders in the group. So these instigators that start using products that some of the people will use in the future. So I think that that's the way of seeing the platform. And in general terms, pretty much a bit what I was saying, trying to get out of the box, try to create from scratch content that is relevant and different, thinking in these generations that are different from others, and try to make everything easy for them, because they are used to getting what they want in 2 or 3 taps or clicks. So maybe it's a generation that they scroll and they navigate very, very fast. So the simple, the better sometimes. So it's a way of thinking about, sometimes I see many activations and many creatives that takes a long time to process and to approve. But when you realize and you test them on mobile, you realize that they haven't been thought, created or approved for mobile. So we need to improve our mobile thinking and vertical thinking. So from the brand's point of view, it's not only about the format and the code, but also thinking on mobile, thinking on vertical, being as simple as possible, because the distractions are and the speed where this generation navigates is tremendous. So you need to make things adapted to the platform, but simple, in order to get them to get closer to your brand.
Engage, yeah. Okay, well, Alvaro, that was great. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
I hope that, you know, the audience has found this conversation to be useful. I think, Jeremy, are we going to open up for some questions now?
Yes, we will, and it's been fantastic. I mean, what a great session. I mean, it's so good that a few people have actually written in here, love this, thanks Yabs and Alvaro. So that's coming from us as well. I think it's really good, and we've actually got some really actually interesting questions. You touched on a couple of things there, but I think one that's certainly in here was one that someone asked: what does brand loyalty look like in millennials versus Gen Z or other generations?
Yeah, it's something that that was implicit in some of my answer, but it's are generations where they have just a few brands that they are loyal to, and the other ones they might come in and come out. So you need to get them on board in this short list that I was referring before, and afterwards try to demonstrate them that you can stay there, not only because of the product that you are selling, but also because of your vision, your mission, the things that you do for the community, to say. So there are not going to be lots of brands that they love, because the reality says there is the love brand study that said that most of the brands, they could be eliminated and they wouldn't care. So the challenge is to start doing things that makes you stay in this short list, and afterwards keep this trust and this confidence that they put in you. And it's not only from the product point of view, it's coming from the philosophy, what I said at the beginning, the story doing, farther from the storytelling, and doing things for the community, from the planet, being more involved in what the reality and the reality around us. Yeah.
And I'd probably add to that, you know, in order for brands to kind of work out what brand loyalty looks like from this audience, I think they have to really understand, you know, what is it, you know, what's the ultimate goal with this audience, right? What do you want from them, and almost work backwards from that and build your strategy around that. Because we know, you know, we keep saying that they engage very differently, but they still engage and they're still willing to be loyal to brands. But I think brands have to be very kind of clear in terms of what it is that they are kind of, you know, wanting from that brand, from that user, as a kind of value exchange.
I I love that, and that's beautiful, and actually dovetails beautifully into another question, which is, what are some of the emotionally connected words or phrases Gen Z like to hear in brand copy? It's a good question, that, isn't it?
Alvaro?
That's more like a creative question, but I would say I think users love when a brand, in a way, they say how do you say in English? Give me something or stay away. I mean, now there has been a lot of brands here in Christmas now doing some ads where they speak about their reality. Campo Frio has made a very notorious campaign every single year in Christmas, and this year they are talking about the way to live life to the full. I mean, every single day, as if it was the last one. No? So this is something that has always been said about the younger generation. Live life to the full, or similar messages. So I think that as long as brands understand and they transmit that they think in the same way that young generations think, and provide them opportunities, I think they are going to resonate on them.
Good, and that makes total sense. And then, Yabs, this is definitely one for you. Okay. Someone has said, "I'm a novice at all things Snap. How can I get myself up to speed quickly? And I want to talk to Gen Z, but feel old, and that's why I'm here." I know that feeling.
So I'd recommend, and Jeremy, we can definitely share this around. We have a great it's called forbusiness.snapchat.com. That's a really great way to get started. It's got lots of resources in terms of how you kind of go about building, advertising campaigns, looking for inspiration. We've got case studies, so it's a great place to start in terms of familiarizing yourself. But with regards to the second point about feeling a bit old, that's your words, not mine. I just want to say, look, I think there's a whole wealth of expertise. Whether you're working with one of our sales partners in market, of which we have a number, or you're working directly with Snap. We have done the work on, millennials and Gen Z, and it's our job to kind of impart that knowledge and share that knowledge with you. So I would say, don't let that be a deterrent in any way, shape or form. Everyone that works for Snap understands that, we are dealing with a very kind of different generation in Gen Z and millennials, right? We know that. And so, there isn't an expectation that, everyone should just know what to do when it comes to, creating campaigns and speaking to them. So I'd say, let us do our job, come to us, let us know, what the brief is, what your objectives are. And I think as long as you're clear on what the objectives are, we can definitely help you strategize and kind of come up with, robust kind of campaign ideas. But don't let age be a deterrent, please, because as I say, it's our job to kind of do the hard graft and the hard labor in terms of understanding the audiences that are on our platforms and help you to kind of tap into them.
No, that's a great answer. And there's a beautiful question that feels like it fits quite smoothly into that. Someone has genuinely asked, and I think it's really interesting. They said that the session was interesting, they loved it. Do you think we need to make sure that as brands, we are users first before we try and make a brand profile, which is really good? And then they've actually asked, will encouraging my team to be on Snap get better engagement than a company page?
I mean, Alvaro, you can speak maybe from your experience and then I can sort of chime in.
Yes. I think that obviously the more the use and the more you know the platform, the better you are going to behave as a brand. So definitely I will encourage either you or part of your team to explore, to open a profile, to start playing with it, because it's the only way for you to understand. On the other hand, if you don't do that, you just have to trust your agency, in that case, my role, and let yourself guide through the agency or the sales representatives together hand by hand, because in that you have to rely on that, because as I said, we come from an era, to say it, where people working in the industry were very used to the media that they were using in their plants, watching TV, reading newspapers, to the radio. But when you are putting part of your money in media or in private sales where you are not used to understand and to be on a daily basis. I do understand that it's difficult, that you are putting your money in places where you don't really know how they work. So the best way is, if you are getting older, that is my case, getting surrounded by young people that are very, very in these kind of things, or getting with the right partners, in that case Snapchat, that are going to guide you, and try to trust in people surrounding and working with you, because it's impossible to dominate and to be a master in all platforms, because there is no time, there is, you know, things get complicated more than they used to be. So you have to be surrounded by a good team, professional agency, and be a little bit brave. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, obviously everyone should be on Snapchat, according to me. Like, what else would I say? But no, but genuinely, you know, I think, as Alvaro said, you know, you immersing yourself in the platform and just kind of understanding more about, you know, what the Snapchatters will see and what their experience will be is massively helpful, and will help you inform, you know, what you want to do. But again, you know, we do have our teams who are here to support and help direct. But I think just in terms of, you know, you being able to fully understand, it's like, you know, going to a car showroom, but not actually going into a car to see, you know, what does it look like? Does the interior suit me? You know, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think, being able to kind of familiarize yourself with the environment. And no one says that, you know, you need to be, you know, an avid Snapchatter sending, you know, snaps every minute of every day. But I think to understand the platform and to immerse yourself is definitely helpful in terms of being able to, you know, formulate and think about what you need to put together for your brands.
I love that. And I think we've got two questions that I'm going to wrap into one, because I like them. But I think the first one is kind of almost, how long is a piece of string? But I may be wrong, Yabs, and you may have a good answer for this. But how frequent should brands be posting on Snap if they're using Snap as a way of kind of marketing and a way of using their media campaigns? And the second part is, and I think this is a lovely way to end actually, what are the don'ts of using Snapchat for business and brands? What should they not do?
I mean, the first thing I'd say is just, you know, it's not necessarily about the volume. It's just more about the relevancy, and making sure that the creative is right. So, you know, as a brand, you might have, you know, various different messages, especially, you know, when you look at, I don't know, like something like Christmas, for example, right? There might be different messages that you want to dial up. And I think it's just about making sure that those ads or those formats are relevant. And by relevant, we mean, you know, that they're kind of fitting with the audience that they're trying to speak to. That'd be my first bit of advice. And then, you know, when you think about, you know, what are the don'ts, I think it's so easy to kind of slip into sort of traditional ways of speaking to this audience, in particular Gen Z and millennials. And just as Alvaro mentioned, kind of lifting what you've done across other platforms. Snap by design is, you know, a very different platform in the way that, you know, our Snapchatters kind of behave, you know, the kind of people that they're communicating with, the kind of formats that they're kind of, you know, engaging with. I mean, for example, 2/3 of Snapchatters are in the app with the sound on, right? So that's something to kind of be mindful of when, you know, you're creating assets, is like, absolutely, you know, use sound. Can you, and I don't know, Alvaro mentioned this earlier, but, you know, we've got, you know, a very short amount of time to be able to communicate, usually with Gen Z and millennials, but they are willing to engage if they think it's relevant, right? So even if you, for example, you tease a bit of creative with a shorter format and then it leads on to a longer format, that shorter format that you start with has to be, you know, incredibly punchy, has to get to the point very quickly, and in probably about, you know, less than 5 seconds, right? And again, there are ways to do that by, you know, utilizing the sound and by, you know, utilizing the full screen. You know, we have like full screen vertical video. So I think there's lots of different ways to kind of, you know, avoid, you know, creating things that aren't necessarily the best way to communicate with the audience. But again, you know, we have so many best practices depending on, you know, which verticals your brand belongs to, and we're more than happy to share, you know, all of these insights. So it's just about kind of, you know, communicating with us, letting us know, you know, what it is that you want to do, and us kind of helping you build those campaigns to be successful and to meet your objectives.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think the session's absolutely fantastic. I don't think anyone will have left here disappointed. The audience has completely stayed, which is wonderful. I think we were live on a couple of other social channels as well. So it's been really good, and the feedback is great here. And Ruby, who works in our team, has rightly said to me that if it's okay with you, Yabs, we will connect you and Alvaro into the people that are asking for the links you mentioned. We'll make them available, and I'm sure they are both around for questions and would love to speak to you. Yabs, thank you very much for giving up part of your holiday as well, which is wonderful to do this.
Anything for you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Alvaro, lovely to have you. I think it was a really, really insightful conversation, and we'll have the video up and ready to roll for next week, so we'll ensure that everyone who registered, we send that to them as well. But let's have a huge round of applause to Yabs from our partner Snap and Alvaro from Carat Spain in the virtual world. I know, it's so strange when you're looking at a screen.
Yeah, it is.
And you can't read anyone. All I can tell you is that